Let's get back to Canberra, because I tell you what, one party will be happy about the result, or semi-happy about the result of the Victorian election, and that is the Nationals. Joining me live is the Nationals leader, David Littleproud. David, your Nationals in Victoria seem to have bucked the trend, really. What's that down to?
Good candidates, good local candidates, and that was about making sure that we represented the community in a diverse way. 3 of the 4 new members of parliament that will be going to Spring Street in Melbourne are women, strong women in their local communities, not just in a business sense, but in the community sense. And the 4th, our gentleman from Morwell, is a plumber. Just common sense people that are connected to community. And I think this is what we've got to make sure as a political party. We continue to be able to be connected to community. The people that we put up to represent the National Party should be ones that are connected to community and be able to take that with a lens of common sense. And that's what the Nationals want to be able to continue to do. And I think that was reflected in the result. We had, and the big result of this is that we took out 3 independents. So for all the talk of teals and the movement of teals, the Nationals proved if you stick to your values, you stick to your principles, you stick to common sense, then you can actually win back these seats and rebuild that trust with the community. And that's what the Nationals have done in a sensible way in Victoria. It's a great result.
Well, how concerning should this be for your colleague, Peter Dutton?
Oh, look, I think primarily this was run on state issues, but I think it's important that the lessons are learnt from every election, whether they be state or federal. And to say there aren't lessons, you're kidding yourself. You've got to be honest, and that's what I did straight after the federal election. While we held on to all our seats, you have to re-engage with the electorate in an open, transparent way to rebuild that trust.
But is there a shifting political paradigm here? Much has been written about this over the weekend. It does seem Labor is back on the ascendancy right across the country, both at a federal and state level. Is there something happening here? Is this a repudiation of the right of politics brand at the moment?
No, not necessarily, because you look at the primary vote and the swing against Labor in Victoria. I think there was a 5 or 6% swing, but it wasn't enough. The inroads that Dan Andrews made in 2018 was so significant. So it does take time to rebuild that trust, and there's no silver bullet to this. And that's what the perspective that I took when I became leader of the Nats, is to engage at a grassroots level, to understand the challenges and the aspirations of each of these seats, and make sure that you can articulate that in a common sense way. And that's what I think every political party needs to look at. I think there'll be ebbs and flows. The Liberals will obviously look at this. They'll work through this, and this is a time and opportunity now for them with renewal, with Mr. Guy leaving the leadership, for them to be able to reset, to recast their narrative, and to make sure that they re-engage and rebuild that trust. And that's important for all political parties.
Okay, let's talk IR and energy. First on IR, the deal that David Pocock has done with Labor. Do you like it?
No, he's rolled over pretty quick. I mean, didn't put up much of a fight, which says to me that he was always going to support this bill. And while big business will be able to look after themselves in all this, it's small business. And for the National Party, particularly those in regional, rural, remote, and in small business, I talk about farmers. So what this means is that farmers out there that employ 18, 19 people, 20 people, and then also during the high season of harvest or shearing, put on another 30 or 40, they're caught up with the fact that unions will be now in their workplace. They'll also be caught up with the fact that
they still have a choice, right? They still have a choice if they want unions in their workplace. It seems unlikely.
Well, but there's always choice, but what happens is this is a front for the Labor Party to let the unions into your business, where we haven't had any disruption, particularly in small business.
But why would, my point is, Mr. Littleproud, why would these farmers that you talk about roll over and then want to have union involvement in their business if they've never had it?
Well, under the law, and what they're proposing is that they can have a farm next door that might have signed up to an agreement and then bring in this one, your own. And so this is the far-reaching, this multi-employer bargaining piece. And particularly the challenge, if you look at where you've got corporates out in regional, rural and remote Australia, whether they be in agriculture or not, is that their agreements, and then obviously this gives the opportunity for the union movement to be out and to be into workplaces. But look, we all all want to lift wages. Make no mistake, I'm not against trying to lift wages, but it has to be sustainable. And the problem with small business over big business is that ultimately they'll make business decisions not to employ people or to put people off. And I think that's the danger that we're going down here, and that they haven't quite got the balance right on small business in particular. And this has to be a sustainable move of lifting wages in a sustainable way. Otherwise, there'll be unintended consequences. And that's all I fear about this is the intent of trying to lift wages. We're all on that journey, but it has to be sustainable and it can't be unintended consequences.
Okay, let me ask you about energy, because my understanding that it's not going to be dealt with this week. There's no legislation that is required. The government is not going to go down the path of a super profits windfall tax or anything like that, but there will, as I understand it, be a price cap on gas. Is that the right way to go here?
Well, this is a lost opportunity. They've had over 6 months now to increase supply as we were. And this is simple demand and supply. If you lift supply, prices come down. Now, there's an opportunity, and I think credit where credit's due. 4 or 5 years ago, the Queensland Labor government opened up new tenements in Queensland for gas that were only for domestic supply. And so this is the opportunity that we have over other nations, is we have sovereignty of ownership of our resources. And so the fact that we've got to this juncture is a failure of government. I think there's also some challenges around the retailers in terms of the distribution of gas that's pushing up prices. And I think we'll obviously look at what they're going to put forward, but it's all speculation at the moment. But every week that we have to speculate and we have to wait for action is another week that businesses are having to fork out more. You know, your CC chips, those manufacturers have gone from a $3 million gas bill to a $9 million gas bill.
What do you think of Daniel Andrews yesterday calling for a gas reservation policy in his first interview since being re-elected, but Victoria doesn't actually do any gas exploration?
And won't do any. I mean, This is the rank hypocrisy of it. I mean, Daniel Andrews, congratulations, he won the election. But I just ask Victorians, just think of what the rest of the country thinks of you when you've got a Premier that comes out and says we should have a reservation policy, but it should be imposed on Queensland and New South Wales and Northern Territory, where they actually do develop their gas industry, where they were told by their state governments, Labor at the time, to go and export that gas because they didn't want it in the domestic market, to then have to turn around and put an investment lens that will challenge investment further for jobs into those states, because Dan Andrews hasn't got the courage of his own conviction to drill a hole himself. I mean, the rank hypocrisy is just mind-blowing, and obviously the arrogance of winning an election the way he did hasn't changed his attitude towards understanding he's part of a nation. Victoria should understand they have a role to play with us, and we should be doing this collectively as a nation.
Well, it might just be a little bit more difficult to negotiate in the States than Parliament at the moment, but we'll see. David Littleproud, thanks for your time as always.